Hey everybody, this week's education. So, somebody has asked me, I'm just going to read you this actually, alright? Could actually be an anonymous Q to be fair, right? What I eat the night before increases my scale weight in the morning. Trying to think of things at night that will help. Trying to eat earlier. Is there such a thing as eating too late for dinner? Right, now there's a couple of things that I'd like you to think about when you're preparing your evening meal, right? So the first thing is for the scale weight to fluctuate because of what you've eaten the night before is actually quite normal, right? And the only way you're ever going to get around that is to not eat at night, like after 3 o'clock, right? Which is ridiculous because we can't do that, all right? It's not possible unless you go to bed at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which again, I would like that sometimes, but it's not really living life, is it? So, first of all, right, the food eaten late at night, right, does not directly affect fat loss, right? And what I mean by that is if you eat a slice of bread at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it doesn't have less calories than if you eat the same slice of bread at 9 o'clock at night. Yeah, that makes sense, all right? Absolutely, 100%, right? But if you eat late at night, the fact that your body is processing the food when you are trying to go to sleep will disrupt your sleep, right? Which is why sometimes, if we're on holiday or whatever, right, we sometimes don't sleep well because we're maybe eating at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. And if you're staying up for another 4 or 5 hours after that, that's totally cool, right? It won't affect you in the slightest. But if you're going to eat your dinner in this country, in a normal working day at 9 o'clock at night and then go to your bed at 9:30, right, it might interrupt your sleep because your body will still be trying to process that food instead of doing its shutting down process when you're sleeping so that it can repair itself, right? So that might affect your sleep, all right? If your sleep is affected and we sleep less, right, it can lead to the scale weight jumping up the next morning, right? Purely because when we're tired, the scale weight jumps up anyway, right? Because when we're tired, we get dehydrated, cortisol's released, etc., right? And that unintentionally makes the scales jump up, all right? Also, if you're eating late at night, your body's maybe not had time to process that food properly. Therefore, the weight of that food is still in your tummy, right? So the scales are going to be heavier. Of course they are, because the food is still unprocessed and it's in your tummy, right? So it's in your body. The other thing to remember is if you eat a kilogram of protein and a kilogram of satsumas, right, that is a kilogram. Therefore, if you eat them and they're unprocessed, when you step on the scales in the morning, you will be a kilogram heavier. That's not true, right? But for simplification purposes, just bear with me, all right? So just say you weigh, I don't know, 90 kilos, all right? And you eat a kilogram of protein, right? Your body doesn't process it. When you step on the scales in the morning, you'll be 91 kilos. Yeah, right? Just say you weigh 90 kilos and you eat a kilogram of satsumas, your body doesn't process it. You step on the scales in the morning and the scales will say 91 kilos, but they will not, because for every gram of carbs, satsumas, right, any fruit, any veg, pasta, rice, etc., bread, right, carbs, for every gram of carbs that you eat, your body will store 3 to 4 grams of water. Now, 3 to 4 grams of water is hee-haw, right? But if you add that up over the kilogram, that's 300 to 400 grams of water, which is just under half a kilo. All right, I'm rounding up here, all right? So, carbs at night, I am absolutely not saying do not eat carbs, all right? 100% eat carbs for my dinner, all right? But sometimes you might need to think about possibly cutting back the portion, especially if you're eating late at night, right? So I've left this client a voicemail, right? A voice note, and I've said to them basically, my evening dinner at the moment, and this is partly because my calories are so low and this is my choice, all right, consists of air fryer chicken and half a plate of salad. Like, so half a plate of salad, but it's like that of salad, right? And that's where I get most of my evening carbs, is from salad and Alfredo, obviously, right? But at no point ever when I'm sitting on this low calories would I like cook myself 150 grams of pasta, for example, right? Because I can't afford the scales to jump up, and I don't have the calories for it. But I would have 50 grams of pasta quite easily, right? So you will have a limit of carbs that you can eat that doesn't necessarily affect the scales. Mine's is 50 grams. If I'm having rice, I'm also sitting at about, in fact, I think I'm down to about 40 grams of rice now, all right? So you will have a limit. But the one thing to remember is if you're going to eat, like, I don't know, just say for your supper you have 2 slices of toast and roasted cheese, all right? So that bread is a carb, so you will store more water, so the scales might be heavier. And that's okay, you just need to remember that. And then the next day, they'll be back to normal again, like the morning after kind of thing. So just be aware, all right? So no, it doesn't necessarily matter that you eat late at night before you go to your bed for fat loss, but because the calorie content's still the same. But if it's unprocessed food, if it's late, it will disrupt your sleep. For every gram of carbs that you eat, your body will store 3 to 4 grams of water, and that's okay. We need carbs, right? Do not cut your carbs out. You just might need to be a bit cleverer about when you eat your carbs. Maybe you want to, if you fancy a big plate of pasta, have it at lunchtime, and then have your vegetables at night. All right, bye bye.